Is year 24, season 48, episode 1 of KGB Monday Night Poetry, and I'm thrilled to be back. Get a little energy in the room. We could lose this for now. We are also broadcasting this live on Zoom to one of the cool things that happened during our year and a half of having to do this online was that we actually developed a pretty strong audience of people around the world kind of zooming in to see it. So we're going to be able to share it with them as well. Tonight is kind of an experiment. Who knows what this sounds like to them right now, but hopefully it sounds like something. And we're going to hopefully kind of continue to do it this way and just sort of see what comes of it. Thrilled to be back at this podium. As I said, we haven't been here since March of 2020. The last 18 months have both dragged and flown by. I know that everyone in this room and everyone watching from home has been through a lot, to say the least. The spectrum of what we've experienced individually is wide, but the trauma we shared is definitely collective, generational, powerful. And to be back here doing this again when we weren't sure really that we ever would, who knows what was going to happen to any bar or restaurant or frankly anything, is really kind of a moving thing for me, for Jason, for Jada, for Matt, who's actually able to still curate from Cincinnati, which is sort of lovely. And again, glad that we could share it with our Zoom audience. You know, as though we were here at the bar, we often had tremendous illuminating conversations and things that went well into the night with the people on Zoom, kind of the way that we used to do here. So it was sort of weird to kind of have it going, and to be back here doing this again is surreal. Tonight we're going to know the perfect poet to launch us back into this new reality. The wide space of time and the way we process it and experience it certainly changed for a lot of people over the last year. You know, is it Tuesday or Thursday? Is it 8 a.m. or 3 p.m.? Is it April or June? You know, who cares almost? But the kind of time and space in the mind can induce thoughtfulness as much as it can anxiety. Nathan McClain has long been able to access it for the former. His poems have the zen of open sky, of pause, of seeing well and thinking clearly. He looks at something until he's absorbed by it and able to discover the many metaphors it manifests. Nathan sees how things are interwoven, how the world sometimes speaks for itself almost effortlessly if we're able to tune into its silences. His poems are also such a joy to read in print. He's a craftsman of the highest order. His poems press forward like wide rivers. His line breaks, carefully rendered images and compelling realizations pulling each other along and providing great moments of lucidity and clarity for the reader. His prose is equally the work of thoughtful, inquisitive, and calculating mind that finds hard truth and empathy behind the strained surfaces of things. He's a poet I think we could all use right now, and I'm thrilled to invite him up to our podium now. He's the author of Scale from Four Way Books and previously Owned, which is Four Way Books next year, and a recipient of fellowships from the Frost Place, Sewanee Writers Conference, Bread Loaf, and a graduate of the MFA program at Warren Wilson. A Covey Conham Fellow. His poems and prose have recently appeared or are forthcoming in Poetry Northwest, Green Mountains Review, The Critical Flame, and On the Seawall, among many others. He teaches at Hampshire College and serves as poetry editor for the Massachusetts Review. Here's Nathan McClain.
Hopefully I am now on for those who are joining us via Zoom as well. Grateful to have everyone here and to have, it's certainly strange being in a physical space again. But when Jason asked me to come and to read, I mean, Jason is such a prized individual for me that it would be impossible to say no to such a gracious invitation. So really grateful to be here, grateful for all of you who are here, grateful to all of you who are joining us via your various locations and your little boxes. And I want to start this evening with actually with a poem just by Lucille Clifton, and which is something that I think I'm constantly trying to remind myself of as I listen to the news and get over inundated with news. I'm having to constantly sort of remind myself there are things to consider. This is her poem, The Rough Weight of It. And it has an epigraph, Love the Human, by Gary Schneider. The rough weight of it, scarring its own back, the dirt under the fingernails, the bloody cock. Love, the thin line secting the belly, the small gatherings gathered in sorrow or joy. Love the silences. Love the terrible noise. Love the stink of it. Love it all. Love even the improbable foot, even the surprised and ungrateful eye. And so I just want to spend some time just talking a bit about love, its various iterations in all the ways that it comes to us. And let me just make sure that my timer out. Right. Love elegy outside Eden. My dearest rib, if with the ear nested in the center of the heart, you listen, somewhere within me too, a city is blanketed in flakes of ash, and a flock of geese cleave the winter with a scalpel's ease. The geese honk overhead, where art thou? And I answer, here, in the garden, where nothing lives. I am not thinking, only wavering too long above this pond, which offers mud and dead fish as reflection. I forget who left me this heavy fist and this blue bucket, all this ice and salt. Love elegy in the Chinese garden with koi. Near the entrance, a patch of tall grass. Near the tall grass, long-stemmed plants, each bending an ear-shaped cone to the pond's surface. If you looked closely, you could make out silvery koi swishing toward the clouded pond's edge, where a boy tugs at his mother's shirt for a quarter to buy fish feed. And watching that boy as he knelt down to let the koi kiss his palms, I missed what it was to be so dumb as those koi. I like to think they're pure, that's why, even after the boy's palms were empty, even after he had nothing else to give, they still kissed his hands. Because who hasn't done that? Loved so intently after everything has gone, loved something that has washed its hands of you. I like to think I'm different now, that I'm enlightened somehow. But who am I kidding? I know I'm like those koi still, with their popping mouths that would kiss those hands again if given the chance. So dumb. I'm going to weave in a few poems from the forthcoming book, which I'm very excited about as well. This is one of those poems from the new book. It's entitled Love Poem. The tennis match was still on, and while some watched, some sat around and shucked oysters, cut them from their shells. The score going in the background, love, 15, 30, etc. A peculiar system. But what did I know? Certainly not the name of either player, how many games were left, or what each white boundary line meant. Only that love meant nothing in tennis, or didn't exactly mean nothing, but rather to have nothing, zero. One hardly thinks of love as bad, except when tennis is on, when one considers a score is being kept. I've certainly seen this to be true more than once. I'll say love is no good, but context is important. Okay. My love and I sipped bourbon late one night. She had been pregnant with twins, belly a greater zero. Some said love made them, and that was true. And after, some said, well, at least you still have love, and that was also true. It's interesting to read that poem now as my wife and I are very excited that we are expecting a little one in November. And so that's thrilling. This poem is entitled Love Don't Live Here Anymore, which is also the title of a song popularized by Luther Vandross. He thought he was alone. My father had left her. She'd hum in the kitchen. She thought she was alone. Her song, the sound a needle makes, lapping the innermost groove of an LP, almost a screech. She thought she was alone since Dad had left her, leaving behind some burnt down trees. Of course, he left us both, but I was still there, watching from the kitchen door, the scar he left inching up her legs and arms and all around her neck. What loss doesn't scar you like that? When she thought I felt alone, she'd sing to me, but her screech, it was deafening. But this next poem is entitled The World is Full. I saw the wolf outside the window, in the backyard, near the park bench, nearly stripped of all its paint. Or I thought it was a wolf I saw, insomuch as I even called, wolf, wolf, though through every room of the farmhouse. It was quite the spectacle. False alarm, one might say, as if explanation were a kind of comfort. I was not comforted. My panic startled me, the way one can be startled by something he's read in a book he's forgotten he owns, that he can't in the slightest remember buying, while thumbing over the other spines, all those titles huddled together there on the shelves. Out of nowhere, we say, in cases like this. Where did this come from? How had I missed this? The wolf seemed to come out of nowhere, or maybe from a book I remember read to me as a child, some cautionary tale, a window capable of being looked in, seen through, if you were brave. It was not a wolf outside the window. It was a coyote, but with the wolf's bulk, its metallic flash of fur, its appetite. I admit I was afraid, not for myself, but for the chickens. I looked out the window because the chickens clucked so madly, like children at a school running amok. The hens flapped at the glass. The chicks instinctively slipped out of sight into the taller, wet grass. No, it was not a wolf. Of course, I knew the difference. I'd been a boy, been small enough to be clenched in a wolf's jaw, though I never was. I was safe. I wanted to save them, but the commercial in the background insisted the window for savings was closing fast, then faded to black, as they do when they're done. The wolf scattered them, the way feathers can be scattered, torn from the body, or the way children are drilled, even in grade school, to scatter. Shh, be prepared for this now. I called Wolf. I clapped at the glass, which I've been told makes a difference, and I wanted things to be different. To the chickens, it must have looked as if I took delight in their predicament. And who would tell them otherwise? The world is full of suffering. It's true. Why not delight in that it's yours, not mine, for once? The coyote slunk away, or the wolf did. Something dead, I thought, between its teeth. I was afraid, though I went out to look for what was missing, what was lost to the woods. 10 chickens, 2 chicks. I counted them, like I tally all loss. Scattered the way one might scatter birdseed in the yard, or how one might scatter a child's ashes to the ocean's indifference. I had been a boy, lost among the woods as in some fable, or maybe not lost. Maybe just the shade of tree bark, not a wolf, though to the chickens, the distinction hardly matters. Here, chicky, chicky, no one had bothered to name them. To name them, we believed, would make them harder to kill and eat, but how wrong we were. I believed I could save them, or that saving them meant I loved them, that my love was good for something. So a couple more. This poem is entitled Multiple Choice, and it is where the title of the book comes from. Multiple choice. Dull, bulky, previously owned, it was usually tucked in my backpack next to algebra or earth science and my gym shorts, US history. Some old scene drawn on the cover. There was a teacher, a classroom number. I was this many years old. There was time, which was set aside every day. I had a locker, a combination. I sat at a distance that softened the edges of white chalk on the board, poor vision, though even that didn't make me much care to commit the past to memory, except to darken the right bubble on the test sheet. Christopher Columbus discovered America in blank. The Declaration of Independence was first signed by blank. Blank assassinated Abraham Lincoln. Answers were simple and dependable, black and white. You were remembered for better or worse for what you did, what you refused to do. Every year, Rosa Parks sat unmoved. Dr. King dreamed, and I recorded it as if for the first time. I've heard textbook sometimes used to describe an act as flat and predictable as a stretch of country road. Miles of the same cow slowly chewing cud with the effort or patience it might take to grind the difficulty of any fact down. Robert E. Lee surrendered at blank to end the Civil War. At the end, my mother once said, every battle is lost by someone, has its casualties. Bronze monuments erected to the story, or some other old scene just as dull and clunky. Until blank, years before I met my wife, I could have been dragged off for simply glancing at her, which I do often and too long. The moral? Who knows? Maybe, if you're lucky, you outlive the usefulness of such knowledge. Besides, it's a new world. I own the Riverside Shakespeare, 2 biographies of Coleridge, my shelves lined with the past and its usual despairs, its joys as well. Sometimes I look. Sometimes I get swept up in all the looking. There is rain, someone returns home, a letter arrives with the expected news, a cat on the windowsill, asleep, my wife in a rocking chair, quietly reading. Everyone keeps asking when we will finally have a baby, because it's a thing we can choose now. I mean, how lucky is that? I'll close with a closing poem from the book, which is entitled Poem from a Rest Stop Diner. I spend a lot of time on the road these days, so, and I love diners. So this is, this seemed appropriate. And thank you once again to all who are joining us virtually. Thank you to all of you who are here this evening. My many thanks to Jason and everyone who organizes the KGB Monday Reading Series. It's a joy to be back in this space. Poem from a Rest Stop Diner. It ends up being the same diner and the same men licking the same finger before turning the page of yesterday's paper. Always reading yesterday's paper because it costs so little to look back. To have your mug refilled with black coffee, cooled under the ceiling fan's spin. Nothing is unexpected, and it's absolutely perfect. Down to the waitress wearing her name permanently marked on a plastic heart she's pinned over her heart. Her finger slipped in the ceramic ring of the mug. The bill like a whisper tucked beneath your plate. The bell at the host stand, the little girl smacking it. Though not to get anyone's attention, just to hear it sing. The same song, the only song it knows. Thank you.
A round of applause for Nathan. Thank you so much. Really, really beautiful reading, and I'm really excited for our next quote as well. We're going to take a quick break of 5 minutes. Zoom folks, please don't leave. I'm going to turn off the camera for 1 second to save the battery, but let's everybody grab a drink. We'll take a 5-minute break here, and then we are going to be hearing from Melissa Broder. One more time, Nathan McClain.
97 have been bringing you poetry, and we can't stop, and we won't stop, and you should check out the YouTube archive if you haven't seen what Jada and John and Matt and I have been up to for the last year and a half with KGB and Lori and Dennis. So I'm really excited that we get to welcome you back with such an amazing lineup. Nathan McClain, as you can tell, is one of my favorite writers. And Melissa Broder, well, I'll introduce her now. Because everything that happened more than 5 years ago gets lost in the digital age. I actually could not find the year when I first met Melissa Broder, when I was teaching at the Gotham Writers Workshop, and she signed up for my introduction to poetry. And shockingly, the course ran with just 3 students, an elderly gentleman with poor eyesight and a preference for spiral notebooks, a person who had lost a memory because they came to class once.
Grace.
And Melissa, wait.
Her name was Grace.
Grace, you were. I'm glad you're. Did she come more than once? Am I exaggerating?
Like twice.
Twice. Okay. Melissa Broder, then an unassuming publicity agent at Penguin Books with a quirky sense of fashion and a bicycle with a wicker basket on the handlebars. While I saw that Melissa was a serious writer and a gifted poet, I did not intuit her work ethic, and I did not realize that she would become one of the central voices of our culture. That class ended up being a kind of tutorial, and I loved those conversations. And then I loved watching Melissa become a fixture on the New York poetry scene. I loved attending her readings at Cake Shop. I loved watching her curate evenings of poems based on seminal albums, and I loved watching her publish Up a Storm. While I am not in the habit of making deathbed promises, when I promised to find one of my students a press for her chapbook before she died, and then found one for her after her death, Melissa organized the reading for it and created a significant tribute to keeping the memory of Barbara Brackney alive. It was a really meaningful event. I worked with Melissa on her first poetry manuscript, When You Say One Thing That Mean Your Mother. And then I watched her get her MFA. I was bereft when she moved to Los Angeles. I was concerned when she began publishing fiction. But if you haven't read The Pisces yet, you'll have your chance to watch it as a major motion picture starring Claire Foy if you wait a little bit longer. So I am thrilled that we get to welcome Melissa Broder to our humble podium as a poet, to welcome her back to Poetry Land, to celebrate the publication of Super Doom, a selected collection of her poetry. Melissa's voice is distinctive, by turns intellectual, neurotic, bawdy, playful. Her poems are tours de force of confession and erudition, often visible through scrims of conceit and linguistic play. Her poems have appeared in all the good places, and I speak on behalf of the entire poetry world of New York when I say welcome home.
Aw.
We've missed you.
That's so nice.
Please welcome Melissa Broder.
So I think that I left my book on the train, so I'm going to read off my phone. So I think it was 2005 that I took your class because I had, yes, when I was 25, I got sober and I didn't write for a year. Or maybe it was 2006. And I didn't know if I was ever going to write again. And then I was like, okay, well, I'll just take one class and just like see what happens. And it was Jason's poetry class. And then I think I took a second one with you too, maybe at NYU or something. But yeah, so that was what happened. And then, and it worked, you know, just taking like one class. Like I was like, maybe I'm just gonna like dip my toe. And then I wrote a lot more. So thank you. And I forgot about the guy with the notebook.
Why is this notebook so memorable? Like, what was it? Do you remember the notebook?
Yeah, it was like yellow.
Yeah.
Which is fine. I don't have a problem with yellow, but it was more than the notebook, I think. Okay. So I'm going to read some poems from Super Doom, which is like greatest hits that just came out, like Fleetwood Mac greatest hits kind of. Okay. Waterfall. The most romantic thing a human being can say to another human being is, "Let me help you vomit." No human being has ever said this to me, and I keep going to God too clean, as though God is frightened of muddy feet. If I am missing a hairpin, I don't go at all. Please describe your vomiting. It is like a psalm to me, a place where wilderness might be new. Other people's dirt makes a lovely frock. Grant I be forgiven in the gush. Deforestation. She was built with forest brain, so she would learn to say, "I know nothing about forests." It is the geniusest thing a tree head girl can say, this "I know nothing." She tried to be a DDT berry. She tried kill syrups. She did not think another tree head girl would ever come, but here they are with matching forests. Now there are two. A map might be made. Come canopy, you DDT berry kill syrup tree heads. Let's action the kind word, tongue to tree. Let us fertilize root and branch. Let us make map us and learn to say, help me. Help me, help me, help me, until we go fallow, clean to our unearthliness. Let us say, help me, until the cackle crows are stilled. Help me, help me, help me. Help me, help me, help me. It is the heroest thing a treehead girl can say. I don't really know what a treehead girl is, but I know what it isn't. Power nothing. When I say I am a fierce woman, I mean I am a gentle woman. When I say I am a gentle woman, I mean leave me alone. When I say leave me alone, I mean I don't know what to do. When I say I don't know what to do, I mean help. When I say help, I mean I believe in something bigger. When I say I believe in something bigger, I mean because I want to. When I say because I want to, I mean because I need to. When I say because I need to, I mean to live. Judgment. This poem is actually, I used to have this poetry series at the cake shop, which is gone now, but I used to do like themed nights, and we did like a toast night, and the card that I was the judgment card. So this is the poem I wrote for that. Judgment. When the preacher comes to town, I try to hump the preacher. I try to hump angels. I cannot untouch sublime beings. My guardian angels are mine and all for me. When they leak me. Still, there are cracks between us, and you have to fill up cracks with candy. If I am not allowed candy, I use my body. If I am not allowed my body, I use the internet. Television is going to deliver me from the internet. The angels pray over my screens. My angels are probably lonely, also disillusioned with me. I have always felt the presence of a disappointed being. The preacher says I am not dead. I am definitely dying. I am already digging out of my coffin. I dress in cicada skins. I go bright blonde. I wrote this before I moved to LA, so I wasn't blonde yet. Above me is the blonde angel Raphael, and I try to make the blonde angel French me. The blonde angel has a thick tongue. He wants to talk about healing, the violence no one has done to me. Every violence I have done to me. When I leak me. What was so hell that I violenced me, that I knifed the wounds into my wings? There were always beautiful horses. There were cracks in all the horses. When I stuffed their mouths with candy, they turned to rotten. I made candy luncheons in the pasture. It tasted very desire. I poured cherry soda into all my cracks. Tell the angels to give me sugar if they do not want to hump me. A supreme being should heal me, but only for forever. Inflate the slide. Trade a man who loves you for language. I am addicted to my thoughts. When our world blows up, there is a pink bed and two girls sitting cross-legged in pink smoke, meditating on my dick. They feed him strawberry yogurt. He gives them chimeras. That is a poem about not wanting to get old. It's from a book called Scarecrow, about not wanting, the whole book's not wanting to get old. I guess all my books maybe are not about not wanting to get old. But Scarecrow is out of print now, but now it's back in print as part of Super Doom. Paul. Hello, porn video. Hello, Scarecrow on the train. You know we got old. The young are devils in our dream. They are made of rotten sugar. We are holding on to one car, and the car is named Tight Like a Baby. Call me tight like a baby. Clarity is a wart. You see the warts on my face? Eat them retrospectively. Save me, Scarecrow. The condition of my face. I ate the world and I ate the world. It tasted like a bandage. Okay, this is called Lunar Shatters. I came into the world a young man. Then I broke me off. Still the sea and clouds are Pegasus colors. My heart is Pegasus colors, but to get there, I must go back. Back to the time before I was a woman, before I broke me off to make a flattened lap and placed therein a young man where I myself could have dangled. And how I begged him enter there, my broken young man parts. And how I let the mystery collapse with rugged young man puncture. And how I begged him turn me Pegasus colors and please to put a sunset there. And gone forever was my feeling snake, and in its place, dark letters. And me, the softest of all. And me so skinless, I could no longer be naked. And me, I had to de-banshee. And me, I dressed myself. I made a poison suit. I darned it out of myths. Some of the myths were beautiful. Some turned ugly in the making. The myth of the slender girl, the myth of the fat one, the myth of rescue, the myth of young men, the myth of the hair in their eyes, the myth of how beauty would save them, the myth of me and who I must become, the myth of what I am not, and the horses who are no myth, how they do not need to turn Pegasus. They are winged in their unmyth. They holy up the ground. I must holy up the ground. I sanctify the ground and say, fuck it. I say, fuck it in a way that does not invite death. I say, fuck it and fall down no new holes. And I ride an unwinged horse and I unbecome myself and I strip my poison suit and wear my crown of fuckets. The crown of fuckets, it's not easy for me to keep that one on. You know, that's what I love about poetry. It's a moment frozen forever. I've maybe been able to wear the crown of fuckets successfully very few times in my life. But now it is captured forever. It's called Man's Search for Meaning. There is a lot of love, and then there isn't. Then there is. I look to the shit doors for love because they glitter. Oh, the glittery shit. So much more magnetic than what I have inside me. Inside me is more shit, but not glittery. Though below the shit is maybe a temple. And when one shit door closes, you must build another shit door from the dregs of reality and shit mind. Oh, bless those dregs with fantasy, and therein lies your glitter. Yes, bless that glittery shit door, so much like the first door. But this door will be different, really. Infinite shit doors, if you want them, really. I want them. That's just like trying to fill the hole with outside stuff, you know? Which is like probably also what all my books about. Okay, just gonna read a couple more. It's called I Give a Convincing Sermon. I give a convincing sermon. I say the body is a coat. It is a very dark and heavy coat, but worthless. Mother Mary nods from the pews. If I give Mary all my atoms, she will plant them in a garden where ripened women relinquish their bones to make room for littler women. It is dangerous to grow accustomed to a garden. Just when the flowers soften you, they disappear. Then you are a weepy fern among skyscrapers. I don't want my soul exposed like that. Neither can you make a garden stay. Don't even try. Every plot becomes a dark city over time. I have collected many dark ideas over time. I have so many ideas, they are a second coat. I wrote that on the elliptical machine at the old 24-hour fitness or so, I don't know, on 6th Avenue. And like, you know where the gourmet garage is? I wrote that poem about over the gourmet garage on like an elliptical machine. I like to write in motion. This is called, I'm gonna read like two more. This is called The Great. This is a conversation. I am conversing with the great. Though I know no perfect talk exists, and if it does, I will never talk perfect. I talk with snow in my mouth. I talk with snakes in my mouth. There are many greater mouths than mine. Can we still be friends? Volition me to the great. I seek in garbage doors. This strange seeking is not without reason, for the great has made a million slimy charms. My palms are full of slimy cargo. I am carving my way back to the great. I am carving through my slimy body. When it breaks, the great floods in. I'll read this one. I'm coming. The people talked to me of God. Then God talked to me of God. God said, do not move. I said, I know. And then got very still and knew that I was not, and saw our shadows in the room, two wild and kindly dogs, leaking light from out their wet jaws. The good of breath from where we all began, though our minds tried to tell a different story. A tale of man and his machete, murder of our dogs when we fake being men, or live a lifetime in the human codes. Fierce we cut the shadows with our seeing eye bones. Gently then we dress the wounds. Nothing that will lead us back to earth. Thank you.
Thank you so much for being here. Jada, give a wave. Jada is our fourth curator, so if she takes your picture, she'll put you on the social media. Say hi. We will be back next Monday with Troy Jollimore and Anthony Corelli. As I always say, we do this every Monday, but it's more fun when you're here too. So thanks for coming. We love you. We're glad to be back in person, and we'll see you next week.